On today's prequel episode of This Film Is Lit, we're talking about Stranger Things Season 2, Thor Ragnarok, and giving you a sneak peek and a little fun facts about our next episode, which will be on Shrek. That's all coming up on This Film Is Lit. That's right, it's the second prequel episode. We're on prequel to episode 8. Next episode, we'll be talking about Shrek, which we'll give you a little sneak peek, a little info on in the second half of this episode. But right now, we're going to talk. We finished two things that everybody's interested in. Stranger Things, Season 2, and we went and saw Thor Ragnarok. Let's talk about Stranger Things first. We're about to talk about Stranger Things. If you haven't watched it and you want to, go watch it, because there are going to be spoilers throughout our discussion. It's good. It's good. It's good.
It was good.
It was really good.
I liked Season 1 better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I would have been hard-pressed for them to match. Yeah, I think it would be hard for them to have matched, because Season 1 came so out of nowhere, at least for me.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't heard of it. Like, my coworker came up one day and was like, have you seen Stranger Things? I didn't know anything about it. Somehow missed everything. I never saw, trailer. I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen Stranger Things? I'm like, what's that? And then we went and watched it, and I was like, wow, that was really awesome. And so it'd be hard to kind of match that sort of...
Yeah.
Not, when you've seen it before.
I mean, the newness of it.
Yeah, what's
sure.
the word? I keep wanting to say nostalgia. That's not the right word, although it applies in this particular instance. But the novelty. That's the word.
Yes, that's the right word for it.
That's the word I was looking for. I knew it was an N word.
I thought Season 1 was scarier.
Yeah.
And I thought it had better, tension and mystery than Season 2.
That's fair, because you didn't know, you had no idea, what anything was or what was going to happen. This, now that we've kind of established the rules a little more, we kind of knew. I think if I broke it down, I would say I think Season 1 is probably, if we're going to do, a 9 to 10 with, 0.5 scales, I'd say Season 1 is probably, a 9 or a 9.5. Mm-hmm. And I'd say this season was probably an 8.5.
Yeah,
in my opinion, it's a point lower, maybe in total. But I think it also did a lot of things really well, especially in a follow-up season. Yeah. I thought they really continued the characterizations well and developing the characters in ways that made sense and followed on from Season 1, but were still interesting. And none of it got stale. I didn't feel like any of the characters, kind of got stale or anything like that. I think all the new things they added, all the new people they added, the new characters were all good in their own way, other than everybody's favorite thing to shit on, which is Episode 7, which I didn't hate as much as the rest of everybody seems to. I thought it was kind of boring, but, fine.
I wasn't crazy about it, mostly because I thought it felt like a different show.
Yeah.
It felt like an X-Men show.
Yeah, and that's what everybody says, yeah. My biggest problem was that I don't think it would bother me if they just... And now it had to be where it was for Eleven's motivation and her character development, so it makes sense. But it wouldn't have bothered me if it hadn't been right at such a peak moment of the season when we're, really interested.
There's a huge cliffhanger.
And there's a big cliffhanger in the episode before, and then it's just we're going to go do another thing now. If it had been either its own thing, or I don't know, if they'd done it a different way.
I think you're right. I think that's why people reacted so negatively to it, because we were expecting to come back
because it's a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And then they're just and we're doing something else now. And I don't think people would have hated it as much if they hadn't done it when they did. Now, I don't know. I mean, again, I kind of had to do it then because that's where it falls in the story, kind of. The other thing I think they could have done is just, with that would have worked, was just do that, take that episode. And now the reason they did it, a lot of people speculate, is they're basically backdoor pitching a pilot for a spin-off show with those, which makes sense, I understand, but I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen, because nobody seemed interested. But I think what they could have done, if they weren't worried about trying to pitch, or kind of throw in a little pilot for a spin-off, they could have just taken that episode and split it up.
No, I agree.
chunked it into the other episodes.
Spread it out over a couple episodes.
You know, what's going on it's like when you cross the sea in Game of Thrones. Like,
meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Yeah, it's like, what's Daenerys up to over across the sea? But, like, they could have done that, and I don't think it would have bothered people as much. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people complained that the characters were one-dimensional and kind of, like, just, you know, generic.
I mean, we don't really get to know them.
That's the thing. So. They're just, you know, we only get one episode.
Yeah.
It was fine. The only thing I didn't like about it is that it derailed the momentum of the season. Yeah. But I didn't think it was like a terrible episode. It just wasn't interesting.
I didn't think it was terrible. I just wasn't crazy about it.
Yeah.
But I did think it was good and necessary character development for 11.
Yeah,
so.
It made sense. But apart from that addition of the new people, Max was great. Really liked Max. Billy was really...
Billy. The older brother, right?
Right, the older brother. His name is Billy because he plays the Red Power Ranger in the new Power Ranger movie.
Oh my god, does he?
And I think that character's name's Billy, maybe? At least I think it was in the original Power Rangers. I thought the Red Ranger was Billy. I could be wrong. No, that might have been the blue. I don't know. So that's why I was like second guessing myself.
That might have been the Blue Ranger.
Yeah, I can't remember. He was really interesting. I think he was just racist. I can never decide if the whole thing with Lucas was like he didn't want her hanging out because whatever. But I think after they didn't ever resolve that, I think it's just because he was racist.
Well, yeah. I mean, we had the short little scene with his dad.
Yeah.
And his dad was clearly homophobic, and they tend to go hand in hand for whatever reason.
Bigot's gonna bigot.
Yeah. So it's not a far stretch for me to assume that he was just a racist asshat.
Yeah. I think Billy's gay.
Do you think Billy's gay?
I think Billy's gay. I don't think it's a hot take. I think plenty of people on the internet have said this, but or at least bi. There's so much, and I know it's the 80s, and that's just everything was super homoerotic, and but like the shower scene with Steve, and some of his lines are very. There's just a lot of like ambiguity to some of the things he says, where he's like, "Oh, the women around here aren't my type." Like the way they're delivered, a couple lines and stuff like that, and I totally thought he was going to start like. Hit it like trying to kiss Steve in the shower when they're showering together. But I think I think it's gonna be a next season thing. I think he's gonna end up, and that's gonna be. I mean, his dad calls them a faggot, but like, but I don't know if that's necessarily like you could see that you could take that both ways. That his dad's just an asshole, and that's just what the go-to derogatory word but he could also, you don't know. So I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that Billy's gay or bi or whatever into dudes.
That would be an interesting way to take it.
I think it's going to go that way. That's one of my predictions for season 3. That's something that's going to happen. Is that he's going to end up being.
It wouldn't terribly surprise me, although I'm not a huge fan of the bigoted asshole turns out to be closeted gay trope. Right. But it wouldn't surprise me if they took
I'm not a huge fan of it either, but I think it would make sense in this for the time period and with what we know of his situation, his dad being such a fucking abusive asshole that like it would kind of work, I think, maybe in the sense that like that's not something he's comfortable with because his dad is such a fucking asshole to him about it, like that he just
that he would be like
is being a fucking
very, very, very in the closet
and very obnoxious and like I don't know. I'm just who knows, but that's something I think that might end up happening. But he was great. I mean, he's awful, but also great. He has some great moments. Him being there gives us some great moments, like Steve being the best character, which I called in season 1. God. Steve's the best character.
Steve's character development was the most impressive thing about this season to me. Like, the only thing on television-wise that I can think of that rivals that for me
I know what you're gonna say.
Is the entirety of Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say Jamie on Game of Thrones.
Jamie's a really good example.
Because that's a really good one.
But Parks and Rec is like a masterclass in character development.
Oh, it's incredible, yeah. Parks and Rec is just one of the best television shows of all time.
But Steve, my God. Like, I liked Steve by the end of season 1.
I get to be the season 1 bandwagon, or not bandwagon, the OG Steve fan. Steve was, and I remember having this conversation, he's been my favorite character since season 1 because I thought he was the most nuanced and the most realistic of all the characters, and had the most growth of any of the characters, pretty much.
Yeah.
I loved him since season 1. I mean, like, obviously I didn't like him in the beginning, he was a jerk, but, like, over the course of the season, he became my favorite.
That character development, though.
Yeah, for real. And then it gets even more in this one, and then it gets so good. And then, it's like, it's gotten to the point where, like, since everybody loves him, I'm like, he was mine. I liked him before it was cool. But no, yeah, Steve was great. What else was new this season?
Bob
was great. That was a big thing for me. We talked about it early on. I wasn't sure. I was thinking, which they kind of played on purpose, but I was thinking he might end up being like a government plant.
So I never thought he was going to be a government plant. Like,
I only thought that for the first couple episodes.
For the lab or something like that. I never really got that from it, but I really, really thought that he was going to turn out to be kind of an asshat.
Really?
Like, I was waiting for it. Like, I kind of thought that, like, when push came to shove, he would be like, Bob, out.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't expect that. No, not at all. He stepped up big time. Paid for it. But no, I didn't expect that. And it was only the first episode or so when they first introduced him. And there's a couple scenes. I was like, maybe he, I was like, without even really. And once it became pretty clear eventually that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
That he wasn't like a government agent or whatever. Yeah.
No,
but it just would have made sense for them to, like, I just thought that made sense as a story element to, like, the government sent a guy to go, hook up with her and then kind of keep an eye on everything. So I thought that made sense, and I'm glad it wasn't that, though. Yeah. I'm glad he was just Bob.
No, I just thought, like, I mean, for most of it, they played him as just kind of like a milquetoast.
Yeah.
Kind of a character.
Oh,
so I was like, I was just waiting for, that moment of disappointment from Bob, but
I wasn't expecting that ever. I was expecting the opposite.
Me.
That's what I was expecting. I knew it was going to be, because the way they were setting him up was, he's kind of always been the underdog, the nerd, but he's a good guy, and he is brave in his own way. And everybody, this is a meme I see on the internet that Bob had the worst advice ever when he told Will to confront and I'm like, it's actually great advice if considering he wasn't aware there was a demon realm of shadow monsters that can actually inhabit
if it really was just a nightmare,
it's good
great advice.
He has no idea any of this stuff exists, so it's not like bad advice. He just was unaware that fucking shadow demons exist. But no, Bob was amazing. I loved Bob. I was disappointed that he died, but they had to, because they had to get on the Joyce and Hopper train.
They're slowly chugging towards Joyce and Hopper, but
which they'll do eventually. I'm glad that there wasn't, and this is something, and I was talking about at work the other day, that they didn't really kill anybody else off. Yeah. So Bob dies, but like, and one of my friends at work, her husband was saying that he kept expecting somebody after Bob died, somebody else to die in like the last 2 episodes. And I was like, it's not that show. It's not Game of it's not a show or Walking Dead. We're so conditioned by a lot of these shows now, expecting big characters to die.
Right.
I don't think this is that show. I think occasionally somebody might, die. Like a big character might die occasionally, but it's mostly going to be like minor off like characters, because the show's not about like. It's not about that. It's not about, like, twisty-turny, like, who's gonna die now? It's about hope. It's about, it's a more uplifting and enjoyable show than that. Like, it's not about...
I was mildly concerned when they went underground in the last episode, but I didn't really think that anybody was gonna bite the dust.
Only person I thought had a chance was Hopper, but I also knew there was a 0% chance he was gonna die, because I'm like, he's such an important part, and they just are setting up the Joyce and like, there's no way.
It's so nice.
We're not expecting everybody to die all the time.
I love Game of Thrones. Yeah. I do. But it really is a breath of fresh air to have something where you're not constantly worried about who's gonna...
Yeah. You just get to watch it and enjoy it. I know, it's great. It's great. Yeah, I love Game of Thrones too, but it's like, no, I don't have to worry about who's gonna die. I'm not expecting, like worst case, like, a minor character is gonna die. Usually. I mean, now when we get towards the end of the series, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, somebody major kind of died. But, you know, maybe. But, like, even then, I wouldn't be surprised if none of them did. Like, if none of them died. Like, really.
Well, and I mean, Game of Thrones... When Game of Thrones started out doing that, killing off main characters regularly, that was groundbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, well, at least
7 years ago.
As much as they did it, yes.
Yeah.
Because they did it more than any. I mean,
but now it's not.
No. I mean, Walking Dead's been doing it. Game of Thrones has been doing a ton of shows. I don't say a ton, but yeah, it's not super crazy for that.
Right, we have to cycle back on ourselves now.
Yeah.
And have shows where main characters don't die again.
Yeah. And it's one thing where you can do it in a show like Game of Thrones, and even Walking Dead to some extent, where you have a lot of rotating cast of main characters. Or not rotating, but so like in Walking Dead, you have a rotating cast of main characters as they find new people and whatever. Mm-hmm. But in Game of Thrones, it's just such a huge cast of main characters that are like major players that you can kill off. Main
you have a different hero every episode, so
it makes sense. And now we've gotten to the point now where it's main characters aren't going to die as much anymore because we're kind of resolving this shit,
right? And probably not until close to the end of the last season. We'll have like a blitz of death, and then
we'll talk about Game of Thrones some other time. We have lots of things we can talk about with Game of Thrones, but that's a conversation for another day. But anyways, I thought it was really good. Is about as solid as a second season as you could have.
Yeah, no,
in terms
agree.
of following something up and doing new things that are interesting while still mimicking the things, or not mimicking, but echoing the things that made the first season great. You know, we have our new Christmas lights on the wall with the map all over the wall, which the way they calculate that seems like bullshit. And where Bob figures that out, I was like, I don't think that would work.
It wasn't as iconic as the Christmas lights everywhere, but
it also but so we they kind of mimicked some of those elements that people loved from the first season, but added new stuff, added new conflict with Billy, and then the new the Mind Flayer. Being the new overarching villain, which apparently is still there.
And I'm interested to see where they take it for a season 3 too, and now that they've closed the gate.
Well, but apparently it's still there, because the end of the season, it just flips over and there's the Mind Flayer.
So now I'm interested to see like how they explain that and what they do.
And I heard somebody else talking about this. My speculation for season 3 is that what's going to happen, and I heard this was confirmed in an interview, that Papa is not dead.
Right. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, so he's going to show up season 3. My guess is that he's going to somehow reopen the gate, or that the Mind Flayer is going to be working through him or something like that, because at least, that he's going to be a major character, I think, come season 3. There's a reason he showed up in episode 7. Even though, so he's gonna come back, and I think he's gonna be like the main pushing force again come season 3, I think, of like driving evil, that sort of thing. But who knows? Because they kind of wrapped up, and they kind of shut the gate. We're good.
Yeah.
But they'll come up with something.
But apparently not.
They apparently they have 4 seasons. Like, they planned out like 4 seasons.
Yeah, I heard that they had envisioned a 4-season arc.
Which is that's a good length.
Yeah, I think that's a good run.
Yeah. That's it. You can get a good, do a cool, full, complete storyline, but without getting struggling to find new ideas. And you can wrap up, and it's a good, satisfying length of time. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice if Dark Matter could have gotten that 4th season, but that's a whole other thing. All right, so check out
Dark Matter.
I know, rip Dark Matter. Check out Stranger Things season 2. I did not like you need our recommendation. Everybody's already watched it.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, what are you doing at this point?
Yeah, everybody's already watched it. So now we're going to talk about Thor Ragnarok. We went and saw Thor Ragnarok on Tuesday. Another brief summary. It was really good. Or quite good.
I really liked it.
Yeah, I really liked it too. The first 2 Thor movies were about neither of them were bad. They were both fine, but they were about as bad as a Marvel film got.
Yeah, they're not great.
And what I mean by bad, because neither of them are bad, but like they're about as meh as most, as like as in turn. If I was ranking all of the Marvel films, I'd probably those would be like two of the lowest ones.
Yeah, they'd be near the bottom.
I can't think of many others that I would put lower than that. Maybe like Iron Man 2, but like that's way back to the point where it's not even relevant anymore. So they were kind of forgettable and just fine. But this one was really good, and I was excited for it because Taika Waititi, I really loved. We watched What We Do in the Shadows, which was his first, I don't know if his first movie, but his big breakout kind of movie that people know him from. And he had a really, I mean, what they basically did is they said, okay, let's just do Guardians of the Galaxy, basically, kind of. I mean, to an extent. Like, let's go to space. And I mean, it makes sense for the story they wanted to tell for Thor, but like let's go to space and make it kooky, and it's mostly almost a comedy. Like it's based, I mean, and all Marvel films are pretty funny, but like this one really swung for the like Guardians of the Galaxy feel, which is like very comedy heavy, joke driven. Also there's action comedy.
Still has heart.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, most Marvel movies are that way, but, you know, unlike something like Captain of America, which is a little more drama, action-driven, or at least, like, the Winter Soldier and, like, Winter Soldier's like a spy drama thriller.
Right.
And then Civil War is like the big, you know, obviously Civil War. But this one, you know, very lighthearted, while having, obviously, very serious moments. I thought it was good. I thought it was really enjoyable. It doesn't quite get... I think it shoots for Guardians of the Galaxy and doesn't quite reach Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think it lacks a little of the heart.
Yeah.
It lacked a little of the heart of Guardians of the Galaxy to some extent.
Well, I mean, I think the problem there is the first two movies.
Yeah.
Because the heart, I think, is meant to be like Thor's relationship with Loki and with Odin and like that familial kind of bond. Yeah. But
it's been so the first two movies were so forgettable that we don't care as much. Yeah, like the Loki Thor, and I remember liking that in the second one. Yeah, I remember liking
the Loki Thor thing. Fine.
Yeah.
But the Odin thing, like, he's kind of just a dick for the first two movies.
Yeah, from what I remember, yeah. He's Odin.
And it's at a point where it's like, I don't really care about this. Yeah. So the heart of it is not quite as there.
Especially because it is a big thing where he keeps flashing back and seeing Odin. Yeah. And it's supposed to be like this big inspirational, you know. But it's like, I never felt like their relationship was particularly interesting or like, you know. It's not the same way I feel about, like, well, I mean, even, like, in Guardians of the Galaxy, like, the hard-hitting, like, how they're all in Guardians of the Galaxy, they really, in that first movie, drive home how much of outcasts they all are. Right. And how the family they have together, and that big, I mean, the big thing is that, you know, the family is who you make. You know, it's not blood; it's about who you make be your family, or who. Yeah. And so, like, they come together as a family, and but they really drive home like the scenes with Rocket, which is like one of the most, like a fucking raccoon crying about being a science experiment, and it's like one of the most heart wrenching scenes in like any Marvel film in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And so it just lacked that sort of like me caring a lot, but it was still good. So like I said, it's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. It lacks some of the heart, and then I think the other biggest flaw with the movie was that the beginning was real kind of like, let's set up the story and let's go.
There's an awful lot of rising action before you get to the actual meat of the story, which was problematic because it did just kind of. It bounced around and managed to also drag a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and it was just, to me, it was like, okay, I felt like, and now I didn't see Doctor Strange. We haven't watched Doctor Strange, but like, and I was trying to remember what like the last relevant thing that happened before this movie was in terms of like where these characters are, and I guess it would be Civil War, maybe.
Yeah.
Because Thor wasn't really in it because he was doing this. I think this was happening, or
he was flying around through space, looking for Infinity Stones.
But, like, so I guess I was trying to remember, like, what happened to where did we last leave Loki and Thor and Odin relationship? And I didn't remember because, again, the first two movies are so forgettable.
Yeah, at the end of Thor 2,
Dark World, yeah,
Thor: The Dark World. We think that Loki died.
Yeah.
On the planet, the evil planet thing. I don't remember.
Right.
But then at the very end, we know he's like masquerading as Odin.
Right.
But we don't know where Odin is.
Right. I guess that was the thing. It jumped around a lot in the beginning, and it was like, and a lot of like, especially with Odin. So like, I really wish they had, and maybe they didn't know where they were going. I really wish they had set up Hela in the earlier movies. Yeah. At all, even mentioned her. Maybe they did, and I'm forgetting. But if they had mentioned her a few times, and there was this like growing like unease about this thing, like you know what I mean, that would have been great. And then I wouldn't have had, because what it felt like was like, that was what they wanted to have done, was like set her up as this like thing in the background that we hear talk
like
of,
boogeyman,
but the boogeyman, Hela, like what? We don't talk, whatever. But in this, it was just like, since they didn't, what I remember, they didn't ever do that. It was like they show up and talk to Odin, and he's like, "You got a sister? She's evil. I'm dead." And I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, and it was almost like a little reboot of the Thor storyline.
Yeah, a soft,
a soft reboot, which I don't necessarily mind because it was so much better than the first two.
Yeah, it was just, once we got past that first 20 minutes or so, or whatever, that setup of jumping around and like just, and literally Odin just saying, expositing things about characters we've never met, explaining who Hela is and all this, and it felt kind of like, really, is this what we're doing? After we got past that and got into the actual story, like once that was all done, it was great. It was great. Like, it was super fun, super entertaining, super funny. I mean, fucking Hela was great when she...
Dark Kate Blanchett can rule me.
Yes. I was like, I submit.
I am on board.
I submit. But yeah, like, she was great as Hela. It was really visually stunning.
Yeah.
Probably easily the most so of any of the Thor movies, which I've never particularly... I mean, the first one I remember not liking... I thought the first one was okay, but the visual style of Kenneth Branagh as a director is kind of awful to me, at least in terms of everything was fucking movie. Dutch angle, and it was just... it was... I remember not being a huge fan of the cinematic style of the first film, while liking a lot about it apart from that. But this one was gorgeous. It was fun. The music was great.
Yeah. There were
high energy,
fun new characters.
Yeah, the like Kiwi rock monster. I say Kiwi because I think he's like the guy playing him is from New Zealand, I think, or I assume he's like Taika Waititi's friend, but.
But the character growth, like for Thor and Loki, was also really good. Yeah,
it was. They changed a lot. They grew a lot. I guess that was the only other negative. I was kind of hoping, because I thought this story was going to be more about, and which I guess it was to a little bit, because Thor's kind of cocky and cocksure in the beginning. I wanted it to be a little more so of Thor being of hubris being like his doubt, like the thing that gets him cast out, and the thing he has to overcome and kind of learn to be humble again. And which it was a little bit of that, but it wasn't quite as big of a, because the reason he ends up on the planet where he falls out of the fucking whatchamacallit, ice bridge, whatever it's called.
Well, they call it the Bifrost. But I'm pretty sure that's not a correct pronunciation, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, sure. After he falls out of the Bifrost because it's not, because actually Loki attacks.
Yeah.
Her, and Thor doesn't.
They both get tossed out.
I know, but I guess the thing that bothered me was that I would think that I was hoping, because Thor wanted to not fight her. After she blows up his hammer, he's like, we can't handle, unless I misremember this completely, but Loki like goes after her, and then Loki calls for the bridge.
Yeah.
And Thor's like, no, don't do that, because then she can get to... Anyways, I just wanted more of the reason for Thor's fall being like his hubris or something.
I think
so that he would have to redeem himself. This time around,
it was less about his ego and more about his dependence on the hammer itself.
That's true. I guess that because this is the thing. The first two movies are so forgettable. That's basically the story of the first one.
Yeah,
isn't
it is.
Okay, I'm like I forget those stories so much that you're right. That is like the message of the first one is his ego is what. Okay, never mind. So they wouldn't want to repeat that. That would make sense. Yeah, you're right. It is because he's so dependent on the hammer, which they do a good job early on because it's some of the best, coolest Thor fighting we've seen in that opening scene where he's beating up all those lava monsters or whatever. And then the final action sequence on the Bifrost bridge or the bridge to the room where they shoot out of the Bifrost was awesome. And Thor finally going like full rated lightning mode.
Marvel remembered that he's the god of thunder.
Yeah, right? And actually like using lightning instead of just hitting stuff with a hammer.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Carl Urban's great in everything he does. So his appearances, what's his name, was fun. Savage or not Savage?
Scourge.
Scourge, yeah.
Something like that,
a little on the nose. But he was fun, and he had a good little redemption arc. Even he had an interesting little arc over the course of the movie.
No. And they sure got their money's worth out of the rights to Immigrant Song.
Yeah, yes, they did.
They got it. They're like, we're going to use it twice in the movie. We're going to use it in all the trailers.
Yep. Well, it makes sense. They say Valhalla in the song.
Well, it's about Norse mythology.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. I'm surprised they didn't use it in the first two movies at all, which is weird. I mean, they went for a more like cinematic, grounded, like. So they were able to do that in this one because they went more of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah,
they went more of the rock pop.
Hell, let's have fun. It's not that serious. Let's not have the score be like... It's just sliding. Our neighbors are just sliding their sliding door open and shut up there. Can you stop?
What the hell?
It's just sliding shut, open and shut. Oh my god. Okay. I think they're stopped.
They're high. Right.
Yeah, they're definitely high. They're always high. They are always high. But yeah, overall, it was great. Really funny, really entertaining. It was like 220, but it didn't feel it. Like it moved really well. Jeff Goldblum is fucking amazing. Jeff Goldblum's always amazing. Jeff Goldblum
as himself.
It's just always amazing. I love it. There's one scene where he's like talking and he just stops talking. I don't remember this scene. He's just talking, and then he just kind of like stops mid-sentence, and then like the scene, and like everybody's like, and I'm like, I can't tell if that was on purpose or like, but everybody went with it, and that's how the scene ended. But like, it's amazing. Like he was great. Yeah, everybody. It was really good. Yeah. And then we get the setup I don't know what the post-credit crossover scene is. I assume maybe something with Guardians of the Galaxy potentially because they're in space. It would make sense. No, it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely the best Thor movie. It's probably in my top 10 Marvel films right now, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of them, but like I would say easily top 10.
Yeah, no, it's really close to peak Marvel, I think.
Yeah, it is. If they could have, if they would have had a little more setup so they wouldn't have to rush around so much in the first 20 minutes to get everything set up, if they had done more of that lifting in the previous movies.
Right, and I suspect that you're correct and they didn't really know where they were going.
Yeah, with Thor.
In those first, or maybe they were going to go somewhere different, and then they decided to change directions because with Guardians of the Galaxy, we are kind of entering a new era of Marvel.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that if they had known more what they were doing or ahead of time, I think they could have ironed out that first 20 minutes so it would have flowed. Like I said, all they really needed to do was just set up Hela a little bit in previous movies as this boogeyman that we don't know anything about, and then we don't really have to. And then you can still have similar scenes, but it doesn't feel so expository of like who are these, what's going on, what's the bad guy in this one.
Right.
I think that would have helped a lot, even though it doesn't really hurt the movie that much. It was the only real like negative was that first 20 minutes. So even though Benedict Cumberbatch does show up to help a little bit, because it's so weird hearing him speak with a weird American accent. Like it's very strange. But and this is spoiler. We've done a few spoilers, not anything major. But did you notice who those cameos? And I completely didn't get these spoiled for me when Thor shows up at Asgard and Loki is pretending to be Odin. and they're doing the play.
Yeah.
Did you notice who those actors were?
No.
Thor or Loki. One of them is Matt Damon.
What?
Yes. Either Loki or Thor. I can't remember. It's Matt Damon. Oh, fuck. Who was the other one? Odin was like, Sam Neill.
Huh.
Odin. No, Thor's... Thor's played by Liam Hemsworth. Yeah. And then Odin... That's who I didn't recognize him. That's why I didn't recognize him. But yeah, he's played by Liam Hemsworth.
Oh my god.
And then
hilarious.
Odin is played by Sam Neill. It was amazing. I was like, that is Matt Damon. And Sam Neill. Because I remember, I was like, holy shit, that's Sam Neill. That's right. Plays Odin. It was awesome. It was like, that's the most random, awesome cameos ever.
That's really funny, though, because I could be misremembering this, but I feel like I remember reading somewhere not too long ago that Liam Hemsworth auditioned for the role of Thor and like almost had it, and then they decided to go with Chris instead. Yeah.
He's more blonde.
He is more blonde.
And bigger. Well, I don't know if he was bigger back then, but he's bigger now.
I'm sure they both could have beefed up.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I would highly recommend Thor Ragnarok. Still in theaters. Go check it out. I'm sure like it's similar for Stranger Things. You don't need our recommendation. Those are pretty big, successful, well-regarded things going on. You're probably already going to see them or have seen them. So, but that was our take on it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Shrek. Donkey. Shrek, 2001 DreamWorks Films. Boy, I forgot how iconic this film was for so long. Like, I forgot how big of a deal this movie was.
It was a huge deal.
And then we rewatched it last night, and I was like, oh yeah, every line in this movie is like the most quotable line ever, and everybody did quote it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like, I forgot.
But like, before we watched it, I could not remember the last time I sat and watched it all the way through beginning to end.
No.
Like, maybe early high school.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I had a similar experience, and the thing that was funny to me is that once we watched, because I remember thinking like, maybe I've only seen this like once at theaters or something. And then we went and watched it, and I was like, I've seen this movie probably a dozen times.
Yeah.
Like I realized I'm like, I know all of these lines. Like I totally seen this movie.
It was everywhere.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Is that even if you had only seen it once or twice, everybody has quoted and said all the lines so many goddamn times that you just remember everything from the movie. Even that's, I think I've seen it like at least 5 or 6 times and forgot I had seen it 5 or 6 times or something like that. And it was good. It's a funny movie.
It is a fun movie. It is. Little known fact. It is based loosely on a book.
Yes, well obviously, or else we wouldn't be doing it on this podcast.
Children's picture book by William Steig, I think is how you pronounce his name. Yeah. Published in 1990, so about a decade before the movie. Yeah. Pretty par for the course as far as adaptations go.
We can talk about it. I have a little note on the adaptation process and how long that was ongoing.
Okay. The book did win some awards. Won Publishers Weekly Best Children's Book of the Year and Library School Journal Best Book of the Year.
And to clarify, when you say children's book, it's like a picture book.
It's a picture book.
It's like a tiny little, 30-page children's book. Not like a young adult,
No, it's not like a young adult chapter book or anything. It is a picture book. Yeah. Other things I learned. It's not a ton of trivia about Shrek the book.
There's a lot about the movie. So.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure. Yeah. It has its own movie, but it's also referenced in the movie Indian Summer.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either, but it's apparently the book is referenced in that movie. And I also learned in my journeys across the internet that the name Shrek comes from a Yiddish German word meaning fright or fear. But it's also a common expression.
Really?
Like, oi, Shrek.
Oi, Shrek.
According to Wikipedia.
Is that where the word shriek comes from?
Maybe. I don't know. I would have to look that up.
Because, it makes sense. The similar fear, it makes sense at least. I'm sure Donkey says that once in the movie. Oi, Shrek!
You know, I think he does.
I bet that's a sweet little Easter egg for native...
for,
whatever.
linguistics nerds.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Was all we got about the book?
It's a 30-page
It's a 30-page children's book, so it makes
sense. Mostly pictures.
Well, I have a fair amount of fun facts, and it's kind of some interesting backstory, and some of this stuff people will have heard, because it shows up, at least on Reddit every now and then, on Today I Learned About Shrek, blah, 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 like, these kind of things show up. But, so you were talking about how it was written in 1990. It was optioned for a film as early as 1991.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg bought the rights.
Okay.
Originally.
Okay.
And in his original, at least, I don't know how far production ever got or anything like that. But originally Steven Spielberg was going to have Bill Murray playing Shrek and Steve Martin playing Donkey.
Well, that would have been interesting.
Which would have been very different, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's not terribly uncommon in the publishing world for a book to get just optioned and then a studio sits on it for a decade.
Well, and apparently Steven Spielberg was a huge fan of the book and really liked it a lot and wanted to make it. And there's a thing later. And so and this is before DreamWorks existed. But he also, so Steven Spielberg originally wanted to make it as early as like 1991. Once DreamWorks finally got the rights to it and started working on it, and Jeffrey Katzenberg, they initially offered the role of Shrek to Nicolas Cage.
Really?
Yes. What's even better, he turned it down, and he turned it down because he didn't want to look like an ogre.
Oh my god. That's the best thing you've ever told me.
Yep. He turned it down because he didn't want to be represented as an ogre.
Oh my god.
And apparently he clarified this after, like like in 2013, he clarified why he turned it down. He said something like, it was really weird and didn't really make sense, which makes sense because Nicolas Cage said it. But like, he said something like, when it's something for kids, and if you're drawn a certain way, that's how kids will always think of you, or something like that. It was some weird, like...
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. It was very strange, but I was like, man, whatever. I mean, I don't think of Mike Myers. I mean, I think of Shrek when I think of Mike Myers, but I don't, like... Yeah. To be fair, I normally think of Austin Powers, but, like... Yeah, I don't know. Thought that was interesting.
I mean, I guess the most compelling evidence for that would be Robin Williams as the genie.
I guess, but like he was so prolific apart from that.
But I think that is the main thing that people think of.
Not for me, honestly.
Not for you.
At least for me, like I always forget. I mean, I don't forget, but like I think of Miss Doubtfire. I think of Pan or Hook. I think of a million things. I mean, I think of Genie, but like it's not. I think of him as I don't think of animated Genie and think of Robin Williams. I totally, like, if you're like, picture Robin Williams, I think of him, and I, like, see him, not like Genie. No. You know what I mean? Like, I don't...
Yeah, anyways, I don't know about that, Nick.
You know what's interesting? It's like, there was a time back when Nick Cage was offered, like, everything.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're not in that time anymore. Like, he was gonna be Superman. They offered him Shrek. Oh. I think he was originally... I could be wrong in my... I used to know all this trivia, but I think he, like, auditioned or was up for fucking something in Lord of the Rings at one point, or I could be wrong about that, but, like...
I can imagine him as Shrek in Lord of the Rings before I can imagine him as Superman.
Oh, have you never seen the video?
I think I probably
of him in the suit?
Oh,
He's,
no.
like, he has this weird black rubber suit, and he's like, it's like his test fitting for it. It's very strange. Yeah, it's very strange. It was the Tim Burton.
Worst thing you've ever told me.
Superman.
Oh, God.
Starring Nick Cage. Yeah. And he had long hair. It was going to be a long-haired... I don't even have very many allegiances to the idea of the character of Superman. I'm not that interested in him. I like Smallville, but like, holy shit, what an abomination that sounds like. So... This is a big thing most people know about the movie, is that originally Chris Farley was the voice of Shrek.
Yes.
And not only was he the voice of it, they almost completed the film.
Yeah, they had like all of his like lines and everything, right?
Almost all of it died.
Yeah.
And then he died. And they had to replace him, obviously. But because I think if they had it done, they wouldn't have... Or maybe they would have because they knew they wanted to make sequels, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think if they'd had it all the way done, they might have waited a little bit, but I think they would have still released it. I don't think they would have... Especially
with animated, because you can just get a different voice for the sequels. It wouldn't be that big of a... But the Wikipedia article, or the thing I read, said that he had nearly completed the project, but it wasn't done. Like, they hadn't finished it, so they had more lines they needed to do, so they had to... Basically, so then they got Mike Myers and re-recorded the entire thing.
Yeah.
Not only did they re-require it, when Mike Myers got signed on to the job, they rewrote the script, like, a shit ton, because Mike Myers didn't want it to, like... be the one Chris Farley was doing. And I think there's rumors that like Mike Myers was like notoriously a nightmare on this project, which it sounds like some of this is maybe accurate, because also another fun fact, they recorded almost the entire movie, and then Mike Myers came back and said, actually, I want to do it with a Scottish accent. Oh my God. And they re-recorded the whole thing.
Wow.
So the Scottish Shrek is not the original.
I've heard that about him in regards to other movies.
Yeah.
Actually, so that doesn't really surprise me.
But yeah, so they had to re-record all the lines so he could do a Scottish accent.
That does sound like a nightmare.
Apparently everybody like agreed that it was better, like with the Scottish accent. Like it wasn't like they were like, once he decided to do that. And apparently one of the reasons he wanted to do it was because it reminded him of when his mom read him fairy tales. Like, I guess she was Scottish or something like that. No, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. Like, maybe the voice she used or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, something she used like a silly voice.
Yeah, and it reminded him of that, and he wanted to kind of bring that into it. So, yeah, another really cool, interesting thing is it was originally going to be a mixture of live action and CG. It wasn't going to be completely animated. They spent 1.5 years testing the technology. They were going to basically use a bunch of miniature sets, real life sets, and then put in digital motion captured characters.
You guys can't see me right now, but I'm making a really weird face.
Guess what? When they showed the footage to Jeffrey Katzenberg and everybody else, they all went, this is terrible.
Yeah, no.
They spent 1.5 years working on it. Like trying to figure out the process of doing it.
No wonder it took this mofo a decade to get out.
Yeah, they spent 1.5 years on a process that they completely abandoned.
Yeah.
And then they decided to go full animation and kind of went, and obviously, it worked out that way, but... It was interesting that it was going to be like this weird, like, real sets, like miniature sets, apparently, with CG characters.
That sounds weird.
Yeah, well, and apparently it looked awful, so they didn't do it. And then the last fun fact, it won an Oscar. It won the very first feature animation, animated feature. Best animated feature. Film? Beat out Monsters, Inc. and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius.
God. I don't remember anything about Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius.
I forgot there was a movie. I mean, it was a show forever on Nickelodeon, but...
I will say I feel like Monsters, Inc. may have aged a little better.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not as dated.
Yeah.
Because of the music and stuff. Sorry, yeah.
The music and, like, the pop culture references. Yeah, the references, That's a whole other discussion, but...
Yeah, but it definitely... the Shrek is definitely... of 2001, whereas Monsters Inc.
very 2001.
Monsters Inc. is not nearly as pigeonholed into a time frame. But I think I can see why Shrek won. Like, it's a really good and entertaining movie. And I mean, Monsters Inc. is really good too. They're just different.
And I mean, thinking back, Shrek came out, I was in, I think, the 5th grade.
2001, 13.
When Shrek came out,
12 for you.
I was 12 or 13. 11 maybe.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like so edgy.
Yeah.
And cool and like revolutionary.
Yeah.
Like nobody had ever done anything like that before.
I mean, it was basically like, it was an animated movie that was like, I'm trying to think if there's any other sort of animated film or like kids movie that was so...
Well, not before that.
No, before it,
I mean, now that kind of edgy, fractured fairy tale kind of they're kind of a dime a dozen now.
Yeah.
But
it had a lot of adult humor. It had a lot of, satire that was kind of political and or not even political necessarily, but
well, it was a huge takedown of Disney, right, and the Disney brand.
But and so it was definitely groundbreaking in a way that I don't think Monsters, Inc. was necessarily groundbreaking in terms of
it wasn't
anything it did. I know visually a lot of the stuff that they did, like technology wise on Monsters, Inc. was really insane, but in terms of didn't really wasn't this new crazy
breaking
thing.
any barriers or anything. No. And at that point, people were kind of ready for that.
Yeah.
Takedown of Disney.
Yeah.
Following the Renaissance.
Yeah, and we were hitting the post-Renaissance.
Right, that post-Renaissance when Disney wasn't really doing anything all that great.
What came out this year? Probably Chicken Little.
2001, Disney put out Treasure Planet.
Oh.
I don't want to run afoul of any fans of this era of Disney, but I feel like we can all agree it was not their best and brightest moment.
Not the best.
So,
but that's Shrek. It's fun. We got some stuff to talk about when we get to it. I have some interesting notes. We will get to play Guess Who, which will be fun because it's been a while since we've got to do that. Even though it's a picture book, we apparently still get to play Guess Who. I don't know how, but you're not just going to hold up pictures.
No, I think it'll be pretty easy in a way. Yeah. But there's some interesting lines that I want to read.
Okay. So. Well, that sounds fun. So look forward to that. We'll be back in a week with our full episode on Shrek. So until next time, go out, read Shrek, watch Shrek. You can definitely do both. It's really easy. You can read and watch it in a span of 2 hours. Both. Or it's a 2-hour movie, it's like an hour and a half. So yeah, you could easily read and watch it in 2 hours. So you have no excuse. Go read Shrek, go watch Shrek, and then get ready for next week's episode of This Film Is Lit, where we'll be breaking down Shrek. How dare you laugh? What is so funny?
Somebody told me.
I'm going to change out our intro music. It's just going to be somebody once told me the world is going to roll me. I ate the sharpest tool in the shed. I think I got it done with a finger and a thumb and the shape of an L on a forehead. Well, these are
fucking Smash Mouth.
Oh, that was my first note. This is all cast. Smash Mouth!